Okay, imagine waking up and your street is now a river. Your car, underwater. Your front gate, floating somewhere down the block. Your entire neighborhood, completely submerged in brown, swirling flood water. That's not a bad dream or some climate apocalypse movie, it's Thailand. Right now, this isn't just another seasonal flood. Thailand is living through the worst flood disaster the country's seen in over 300 years. Whole provinces are underwater. Over 600 millimeters of rain, that's like your body in liquid form dumped across the southern region in
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
just 3 days. Roads, gone. Airports, useless. Farms, destroyed. And as of now, over 250,000 families are displaced and 33 lives have been lost. And the water's still rising. Let's rewind this chaos for a second, because the writing was on the wall long before it was on the ceiling of people's homes. It all started with a rare and seriously bad weather combo. A supercharged northeast monsoon collided with a low-pressure system, and when those two meteorological monsters met, they didn't just shake hands. They unleashed hell. The skies over Thailand's southern provinces opened up like someone turned on a celestial fire hose and forgot to turn it off. Hat Yai, Songkla, Trang, Nakhon Si Thammarat didn't stand a chance. And sure, monsoon rains happen every year. But this was biblical. We're talking 600 millimeters of rain in just 72 hours. For perspective, that's more rain than Los Angeles gets in an entire year. You can't drain that. You can't redirect it. The systems were never designed for it. And honestly, the systems weren't really designed for much in the first place. See, Thailand's infrastructure has been hanging by a thread for years. Urban development exploded, wetlands were paved over, drainage systems were barely maintained, and surprise, when push came to flood, it all fell apart. It's like building a sandcastle right on the shoreline and then acting shocked when the tide comes in. And the worst part, people saw it coming. Climate scientists have been waving the red flag for years, saying Southeast Asia's monsoon patterns are getting more intense, more erratic, and way more dangerous. But governments kept playing flood roulette, crossing their fingers and hoping it wouldn't hit them next. This week, their luck officially ran out. Back on the ground, it's a scene straight out of a disaster documentary. People trapped on rooftops waving for rescue helicopters. Families clutching plastic bags filled with whatever they could save. Elderly residents being carried through waist-deep water. Entire blocks, homes, shops, even hospitals completely swallowed by the flood. Rescue teams are out in boats and amphibious vehicles trying to get people out, but it's not enough. The water came too fast, and the roads turned to rivers before anyone had time to evacuate. Emergency shelters are packed, and aid supplies are already running low. And there's still more rain coming. 2 more days of downpour predicted, with landslide warnings in the hills. It's the kind of situation where every hour counts, and there just aren't enough hands on deck. Now let's talk about the fallout, because the damage isn't just what you see on the news clips. Entire rice fields, thousands of hectares, are gone. Crops drowned, farmers devastated, and with them, a major blow to the country's food supply chain. If you're wondering why rice prices are about to spike, this is it. It's not just a local disaster, it's a domino that's already wobbling into the global economy. And guess what made it worse? The fact that early warning systems lagged behind. With all the fancy weather satellites and Doppler radar we have, somehow the actual evacuation alerts were slow. Communities weren't told in time. It was a race between rising water and late-breaking notifications, and the water won. It's like installing a smoke alarm, but only letting it go off after your kitchen is already in flames. Meanwhile, the government is trying to play catch-up. Naval ships are now being deployed inland. Helicopters are flying non-stop, and military units are in full rescue mode. But let's be real, it feels like trying to plug a volcano with a napkin. The scale of this thing is massive. Every fix feels like a band-aid on a broken dam. And you know the finger-pointing is already beginning. Officials citing unprecedented weather as if that absolves decades of bad planning and environmental neglect. Like sure, the rain was extreme, but this isn't just nature throwing a tantrum. This is years of ignored science, unchecked development, and bulldozed wetlands coming back to bite hard. Because here's the truth, a lot of this disaster was engineered. Not on purpose, obviously, but through negligence. Building on floodplains, ignoring drainage maintenance, destroying natural water-absorbing ecosystems. And the result? A nation unprepared for a climate reality that's already here. And while we're at it, can we talk about how wild it is that Thailand, a country with centuries of monsoon experience, still wasn't ready? That should tell you just how off the charts this was.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
When even the experts are shocked, you know it's real. And here's the climate plot twist no one wants to admit. This isn't a one-off. This kind of once-in-a-lifetime disaster. It's becoming a regular guest star. The monsoons are getting more unpredictable. The storms are getting stronger. And cities, especially in developing countries, are not evolving fast enough to keep up. Infrastructure built for the 1980s just doesn't cut it in 2025. So what now? Recovery is going to take months, maybe longer. Entire towns will have to rebuild from scratch. Crops replanted, homes gutted and dried, roads repaved, and the emotional toll. That's immeasurable. Imagine losing everything: your home, your job, your sense of safety, all in the span of a weekend. The economic damage is already in the billions. Food security is shaken. The health risks from stagnant water, disease outbreaks, and displacement are growing by the day. And the psychological impact. That's the part no one budgets for. There's trauma in every soggy suitcase and every child crying in a crowded shelter. And yet, amid all this, people are still trying to hold it together. Volunteers are cooking meals in flooded temples. Fishermen are using their boats to rescue neighbors. Kids are floating on plastic bins, waving at helicopters. It's the kind of heartbreaking resilience you wish no one ever had to show. So what's the takeaway here? That the climate crisis isn't coming, it's here. And unless governments start treating infrastructure like a lifeline instead of a line item on a budget, we're going to see more more flooded cities, more lives upended. We need smarter planning, stronger systems, and for once, proactive action instead of a reactive scramble, because the water may recede, but the scars stay. And if this flood doesn't force a national reckoning, what will? Look, not every country is built to handle 600 millimeters of rain in 3 days. But every country can choose how to prepare. Thailand's flood disaster is a brutal wake-up call, a reminder that when climate and carelessness collide, the consequences don't trickle in. They pour. If you've made it this far, you're clearly as stunned and concerned as we are. So drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you seen anything like this before? Should governments be doing more to plan for these disasters? Or is this just the new normal? And if you want to stay updated on the biggest meltdowns, disasters, and PR fails from around the world, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Because the next headline might be even more chaotic, and trust us, you'll want front row seats when it breaks. So let's zoom out for a second. Because while southern Thailand is literally drowning, the rest of the world is watching this play out like it's just another headline in an endless scroll of doom. But this flood, it's not just Thailand's problem. It's a preview. A trailer for the blockbuster nobody wants to see, but everyone's going to be cast in eventually. What happens when decades of development ignore the land they're built on? What happens when the environment is treated like a blank canvas for cement and high-rises instead of the living, breathing system it actually is? This is what happens. Thailand has spent years transforming swamps into suburbs, rice paddies into shopping malls. And sure, economic growth is important, but you can't bulldoze nature and expect no consequences. Wetlands are nature's drainage system. They're supposed to absorb excess water like giant natural sponges. But when those get ripped out for condos and highways, there's nowhere for the water to go. So it goes into your house, into your car, into your life. And Hat Yai, one of the hardest hit cities, is a perfect example of that tragic urban equation. This isn't the first time the city's been flooded. It probably won't be the last. But this flood didn't creep in slowly over time. It crashed in, with a force so overwhelming that even longtime residents, the ones who've weathered storms and rising water for decades, said they've never seen anything like this. It's not just flooding. It's the kind of total infrastructure collapse that feels surreal. Bridges gone, airports shut down, hospitals without power. Imagine needing an ambulance and getting a rescue boat instead. That's the level of disruption we're talking about. And you want to know the wildest part? In the middle of all this chaos, the rain just kept falling. Day after day, with no break. It felt endless. People literally prayed for the sky to stop crying. Kids went to bed with life jackets on. Parents stayed up all night listening for the sound of rising water. Every splash outside could mean it's time to run. But it wasn't just the water that shook people. It was the speed. Floods used to give you time, a warning, a chance to pack a bag, grab your important documents, maybe even move your motorbike to higher ground. Not this one. This flood moved like it had something to prove. 1 minute people were watching the rain from their porches. The next, they were climbing onto the roof, carrying their pets in plastic tubs and praying for a helicopter. This wasn't a flood. It was a takeover. And even now, as the government scrambles to respond, there are questions. Big ones. Where was the preparation? Why did warning systems fail? And more importantly, why do we keep pretending this isn't going to keep happening? Climate change isn't some future threat we get to debate over iced coffee. It's the reason southern Thailand is now a lake with street signs poking out of it. It's the reason millions of people are suddenly homeless, jobless, and traumatized. But let's be real. Even if the rain had been half as bad, the damage would still be catastrophic, because the systems in place were already brittle. The drainage was already outdated. The emergency shelters already too few. The response plan already thin. This wasn't just a climate disaster. It was a policy disaster. A planning disaster. A disaster of priorities. You can't patch up cracks with press conferences. You can't float through a PR statement. And you definitely can't rebuild people's lives with vague promises of resilience once the cameras are gone. But don't get it twisted on the ground. People aren't waiting for speeches. They're surviving. They're stepping up in ways that go far beyond any official relief plan. We've seen fishermen ferrying strangers to safety, monks cooking meals for entire shelters, kids organizing donation drives using nothing but social media and waterproof phones, communities taking care of each other when systems failed them, because that's what humans do when institutions crumble. They fill the gap. It's beautiful, yes, it's inspiring, but it also shouldn't have to be this way. We shouldn't need heroism to survive what should have been manageable. We shouldn't be applauding resilience when what we need is protection. This disaster isn't just a natural one, it's structural. And it's fixable. But will it be? That's the question. Because after the water drains, after the news moves on, and after the hashtag dies down, will anything actually change? Or will it all go back to business as usual until the next monsoon hits harder than the last? That's the real heartbreak. Not just the soaked furniture and ruined crops, but the possibility that this suffering might just be wasted, that no lessons are learned, no systems are fixed, and no one in power is held accountable. And look, the government is trying. They're not sitting around doing nothing. There are rescue operations. Military units are in the streets. Helicopters are airlifting supplies. Aid is flowing in. But the truth is, they're not fighting just a flood anymore, they're fighting time. Every minute lost is another family pushed deeper into crisis. And this isn't just about rebuilding homes. It's about rebuilding trust. Because when disaster strikes and people don't feel protected, when the warnings come too late and the roads collapse beneath them, what they remember isn't the rainfall, it's the silence before it. So now we wait. We watch. We hope that this time will be different. That the disaster will turn into momentum. That reforms will happen not in response to headlines, but to humanity. That infrastructure gets the budget it needs. That wetlands are restored. That evacuation plans are modernized. That people matter more than optics. Because if this is the future, we're walking into a world of record rainfalls and submerged cities, then we better start building boats. And not just the literal kind. I'm talking about metaphorical boats. Policies that float, systems that don't collapse under pressure, communities that are empowered before the crisis hits. And if we don't, well, let's just say the next worst flood in 300 years might come a little sooner than expected. Here's the part nobody likes to talk about. Disasters don't just destroy stuff. They expose things. Things people hoped would stay buried under the surface, literally and politically. And in Thailand, the floodwater didn't just rise through the streets. It rose through the cracks in government planning, public infrastructure, and all the quiet corners where shortcuts were taken and warnings ignored. Because once the water came, all the "it's under control" speeches evaporated faster than the rice paddies being swallowed by mud. You start hearing stories, the drainage systems that hadn't been cleaned in years, the flood zones where permits were still being approved for shopping centers, the neighborhoods that had begged for better levees and were told the budget would come next year. Then the next year never came, but the flood sure did. And here's what really stings. It didn't have to be this bad. Sure, nobody can stop the rain. But disaster. Disaster is what happens when warning becomes neglect. When nature meets unpreparedness. When risk assessments sit on desks collecting dust while people on rooftops scream for help. But you know who did see this coming? The farmers, the local fishermen, the Andes who track monsoon patterns with more accuracy than some meteorologists. They knew something was off. The air was heavier. The winds felt strange. The rain came earlier and angrier than usual. But by the time the officials took it seriously, the streets had already turned into rivers and rescue teams were navigating neighborhoods with inflatable boats. It's the kind of chaos that almost feels theatrical if it weren't so painfully real. And now, while the water is still creeping into homes, we're already in the blame game era. Government spokespeople saying this was an act of nature. News anchors interviewing experts on how rare this weather pattern was. Social media full of thoughts and prayers from people who probably couldn't point to Hat Yaya on a map if you paid them. But here's the reality. Rare doesn't mean unexpected. And unprecedented isn't a get-out-of-responsibility-free card. This is what happens when long-term planning is always tomorrow's problem. When climate policy is a footnote. When people with the power to prevent tragedy treat prevention like a PR strategy instead of a public service. And what about the people in this mess? The ones who didn't make the policies, didn't build the flawed infrastructure, and didn't vote for the budget cuts but are now wading through thigh-deep floodwater looking for dry land. They're the ones who always carry the weight, always pay the price, always get told to stay strong while their homes are falling apart behind them. And they do stay strong. That's the tragedy. That people have become so used to adapting to disaster, they don't even expect safety anymore. They just hope they'll survive. But that can't be the standard. That can't be the plan. We can't keep clapping for resilience while refusing to build systems that deserve it. That's where you come in. This can't just be another disaster we scroll past. Let's keep the pressure on. Let's demand answers, accountability, and actual plans, not just photo ops in rubber boots. And hey, if you're watching this from somewhere safe and dry, don't think you're in the clear. Climate chaos doesn't need a passport. What happened in Thailand could happen anywhere. And probably will. So sound off in the comments. What do you think it'll take for world leaders to stop sleepwalking into disaster? What needs to happen before prevention becomes the priority? And if you want to stay tapped into the wild world of public meltdowns, climate chaos, and the decisions that come back to bite, go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because we're not just covering headlines. We're covering the warning signs most people missed. And if this flood proved anything, it's that ignoring those signs can cost everything. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.